Well, shall I continue?
Yes.
Or?
That's
Okay. Okay. I will continue my topic on the Sadra's epistemology and with the discussion of the I'm trying to summarize and to choose discussion of وجود ذهنی. The concept وجود ذهنی you will find in Sadra's several times, many times in different works written by Mullah Sadra. It is mentioned that mental existence is one of the topics handed down directly to Mullah Sadra from the Sufi thinkers. It is based on the famous ideas of the oneness of being, Wahdatul Wujud, and the fundamentality of existence, Asalatul Wujud, held by Mullah Sadra. I mean, this concept of mental existence is actually based on these two ideas of oneness of being and the fundamentality of existence. According to him, existence is a unitary reality having different stages, starting from divine ideas, a'yan sabita, and descending to material existence. And then we know that this is one of the main idea of Ibn Arabi, that the whole being is just one. There is just and the other beings except God are the manifestations or appearances of God. Zuhurat ilahiyya. Zuhurat ilahiyya. And but what is important here in this topic is this, that mental existence is also one of its stages, one of the stages of existence. And each of these manifestations of God is a Hazrat, a word he used as Hazrat coming from Ibn Arabi again, and with the same root as Huzur. You remember we are talking about Ilm Huzuri, we talked about Ilm Huzuri, and Hazrat also is from the same root as Huzur, meaning presence of one divine reality. Everything has an appropriate manifesting in each Hazrat, in each stage. He used Hazrat for stage, different stages of God's being, different manifestation of His being, and the whole makes just one being. It is not pantheism, just which one should be careful. It is not pantheism. In pantheism, according to Spinoza's formula, it is Deus sive natura, God or nature. He doesn't say this. He says there is only one being, and the other beings are His manifestation. His manifestations. Different manifestation. Mind or the soul of man is also a stage of being. That is, it is also a Hazrat. In this way, the apprehension of a thing is the existence of that thing as manifest in the Hazratus of the soul. Hazratun Nafs. Hazrat, soul is also a Hazrat, a manifestation of God, a manifestation of the being of the God. So, apprehension of a thing is the existence of that thing as manifest in the Hazrat of soul. This is the manifestation of the same thing in its mental existence as is also manifest in material existence. Thus, it is that knowledge, ilm, the known, the thing known, ma'lum, and the knower, alim, are united. This is the famous formula of Mullah Sadra, He called it اتحاد علم و عالم و معلوم, unification of the ilm, knowledge, the known, what is known, ma'lum, and the knower, alim. And a famous idea by Mullah Sadra. In Asfar, Mullah Sadra, in his book Asfar, Mullah Sadra begins in harmony with the peripatetic philosophers. He begins holding that knowledge and apprehension are essence of the category of mental qualities, but he eventually arrives at his main idea, that the reality of knowledge is nothing but existence. This existential attitude toward knowledge is as same as the ilm huzuri, as I said. This existential approach to human knowledge, to epistemology, is something unique. Perhaps, I'm just comparing, perhaps we will find something like this in Heidegger's thought. In Heidegger's thought, knowledge as an existential, knowledge as something coming from the man's kind of existence in the world, in his being in the world, in der Weltsein. That Mullah Sadra also says that knowledge is nothing but existence. He says knowledge is not, quoting direct speech, knowledge is not something negative like abstraction from matter. This is the theory of Ibn Sina. Knowledge is abstraction from matter, abstracting the form from the beings, and your knowledge of those forms are your knowledge to the things. He says no. Nor is it a relation. It is according to people like Fakhr Razi, Mutakalliman, such Fakhr Razi, that they say that knowledge is a kind of relation between the knower and the known, an object known. Rather, it is an existential fact. It is a pure, actual being, unmixed with nothingness. Insofar as knowledge is purified from mixing with nothingness, it is all the more so knowledge. It is more knowledge. I'm sorry for the English translation, but if you want to be to translate the words of Mullah Sadra, it's not easy. As appears from his words, Mullah Sadra denies theories according to which knowledge is to be considered a process of abstraction, as well as those according to which knowledge is a relation between the knower and the known, as is found in the works of Imam Fakhr Razi. He says the reality of knowledge is the complete presence of the object known to the knower. The other point in his epistemology is that Mullah Sadra even traces acquired knowledge, ilm husuli, to knowledge by presence. As I mentioned earlier in the morning, he held that without knowledge by presence, acquired knowledge would be invalid. Most of Mullah Sadra commentators have emphasized this. For example, one of his contemporary commentator, Allame Tabai, he says, quotation, acquired knowledge is a mental regard of things that the intellect cannot avoid. It is derived from what is known by presence. He explained that after this knowledge by presence, mind begins to apprehend the essence of things. And in fact, it is the mind that can change knowledge by presence into acquired knowledge. He explains more that if we didn't have this knowledge by presence, we would not have knowledge by acquaintance, knowledge by acquired knowledge. And the source of knowledge by presence, acquired knowledge, is knowledge by presence. He explains it in detail, Allame Tabatabai. However, If we look at the word of being, we find that it is a word in which existence are separated from one another, each of which is absent to the other. So how can existence in this separated and absent condition become present for human beings? This is the question usually raised by those who are giving proofs against Mullah Sadra. In the view of the Mullah Sadra, through the perceived proximity between being and knowledge by presence, existence and knowledge by presence are finally found to become united and to denote a single reality. He wants to say that epistemology is ontology. The result is this. Epistemology is ontology. There is no ontology without epistemology. This is the result of what he says. And there is an indication of this fact that the Arabic word for existence is wujud. We have in Persian and Arabic, the word for existence is wujud. But it is from the same root as the word we use for finding or apprehending, which is wajd. Wajd and wujud are from the same root. Wujud means existence, wajd means apprehending, means finding. So the vocabulary, the root of the words for him are proofs for his idea of the how ontology and epistemology are united, and one cannot separate them. Yes?
Thank you. Excuse me, I don't want to disturb just because of those etymological issues, but actually it could be quite discussed. So epistemology, ontology, first question, if you accept, would be epistemology, ontology. Why not etymology, ontology, like Heidegger? Mm-hmm. That's perhaps the first kind of question. Then the next point perhaps could be about the term of wisdom or the etymology of the different terms used. At the beginning of a lecture, I think if I remember correctly, it was the lecture Das Ding by Heidegger. Heidegger uses the metaphor of hunting. Yes. So you have to hunt the being, or there is quite so to say manly metaphor of hunting actually, but I think that it is probably is not his idea. This is something quite older. And I think etymologically this could be also verified, because in Semitic languages for the verb to know, you have mainly two roots. Two roots exist. The first one, which so to say exists almost only in Arabic, interestingly with that sense, is the elm or ilm, or how you pronounce it. Because it exists also in other Semitic languages, but the meaning is radically different. It does not mean to know, it means to disappear. And so this could also play in the sense of Heidegger, that the knowledge is a fight against or struggle against the disappearance. And the second root, which in Akkadian is edu, and then it is used yada in other Semitic languages, but not in Arabic, as far as I know, means to know. And originally it was to be united with. So, for example, this root is also used to qualify, for example, the marital union between two persons. That can also be used that way. What I actually wanted to perhaps also to say, if the so to say, because you were also sorry, last point, the question of wujud. I have just checked it on the etymological dictionary. I'm not sure for this one, but apparently that root does not exist in other Semitic languages, and it could be a loan from Hamitic languages, where the wajada means the descent of from a superior level to a lower level. So from there, you could have the idea of majesty, etc. So I don't know, sorry for those quite messy remarks, but would you accept the idea that in Mullah Sadra and in others you have this quest of etymology which is supposed to give meaning, or etymology as a philosophy, as an ontology, a Heideggerian style? Sorry for the question.
Yes. Well, this is an idea. You see, I didn't say that Mullah Sadra himself says that since the roots of wujud and vajd are the same, so ontology means epistemology. Because there is no question of ontology or epistemology in his works. He considered them to be together, so he doesn't ask about what is ontology or what is epistemology, and these are the new questions raised in the modern philosophy, perhaps by Christian Wolff before Kant. But my point is that in Sufi terminology, these words of vajd, we have three: vajd, wujud, and tawajud. If you look at it in Sufi terminology, you will find the same thing. And in Sufi terminology, vajd means finding. They said that according to your finding, you are. Who you are is according to your finding. What you have found. Vajd and wujud. Vajd and wujud means that your existence is your finding. So it's not Mullah Sadra who uses the word, in etymology of the word. It's a vocabulary used in Sufi terminology, but Mullah Sadra tries to show how it's not just a question of man in his finding, in wujud, meaning whole being, not just your being, as the Sufi says. Vajd is wujud. It means that what you find. You are what you find, what you understand. What he wants to say that our knowledge of the things is the things themselves. So don't mix it with the idealism, please. It's nothing to do with idealism, nothing to do with Berkeley's philosophy and the modern philosophers. It's not like that. But I mean, be careful about it. But it can be understood. Mullah Sadra, I repeat it several times, can only be understood in Sufi atmosphere. And this is why it makes it difficult to understand it philosophically. It's very difficult to understand it. Those who have very philosophical minded, they will find difficulty in understanding Mullah Sadra. This is the situation we have today. There are, from my friends in university, those who are specialists in analytic philosophy, for them it's completely rubbish. And it has no mentality, no logical background, nothing to do with philosophy for them. And they are right. They are right. In their atmosphere of thinking, in their style of thinking, it is right. And some people says that Mullah Sadra was a theologian, mutakallim, because everything he wants to do is to just to find a way toward God, to take everything into God. Everything is a manifestation of God and things like that. The only way to understand him is to understand the Sufi thought, especially according to Ibn Arabi. Otherwise, it's very much difficult to understand him. And this is why I usually emphasis on the Sufi taste of his thinking. I was talking about that how he wants to solve the absence of each things from the other, and then why he says that ilm huzuri is the presence of everything to man. And I said that that at the level of knowledge by presence, the differences among existence about being disappear, and all are gathered in the radiance of knowledge, and they emerge from absence to presence. According to Mullah Sadra, quotation, knowledge is nothing but the presence of being without a veil. So it means that if you have ilm husuli, you have always your relation to the beings out of your mind is always with a veil. With a veil. There is always veil. But by knowledge of by presence, things are unveiled. The hijab would disappear. Okay. I will finish with omission of many other points, but we will not finish it, I think, even to 6 o'clock, so I just summarize and finish it. As we have seen, Mullah Sadra considers his idea of the union of the knower and the known to be like the kind of knowledge God has of his creatures. If you want to get to the deeper layers of his idea, one should read the theory of the perfect man. Perfect man in Islamic Sufism. You will see that according to the theory of perfect man is the vicegerent of God on earth. He is the deputy of God on earth. So he tries to show that whatever goes back to the God, you will find also goes back to the perfect man here on the earth, because he's deputy on the earth. He says that this union of knower and the known to be like kind of knowledge God has of his creatures. For this knowledge does not consist in the presence of the forms of creatures, according to the Ibn Sina. According to his theory of knowledge, forms of creatures, this is the Aristotelian theory, are present in the mind of God, but rather his knowledge is the creatures themselves. His knowledge is the creatures themselves. With such knowledge, man becomes similar to God. For according to him, this similarity is acquired when man's knowledge is intuitive and presentational, not representational and acquired. I didn't want to disturb you, but he has point about these two concepts of presentational and representational. If I want to explain it in a summarized form, is that in representational form, you know that this representational theory of knowledge goes back to Descartes. Representational theory of knowledge, according to which whatever we understand is the representation of the thing. It's not its presentation. So we are always having a representational relation to the thing outside. If you want to know what would be the result of this idea, one should look at the title of the book by the German philosopher. So, In other words, when knowledge becomes the very being and knowledge become one. Accordingly, Mullah Sadra defines the goal of his Sufi philosophy as follows. This is the result of 4 journeys. You know, asfar is the plural of the word safar. Safar means journey. And he explains about 4 journeys that man has from God to creature and going back from creature to God. Each of these journeys consists of 2 other journeys. And this is what he calls it asfar arba'eh, 4 journeys. In his asfar, Mullah Sadra says that the result of, the goal of his Sufi philosophy as follows. Direct speak. Wisdom is man's becoming an intelligible word similar to the objective word. I will read it again in Arabic first. Al-hikmatu hiya sayruratul insan alaman aqliyan mudahiyan lil alam al-ayni. Al-hikmah, wisdom, is man's becoming an intelligible word. Man becomes an intelligible word similar to the objective word. In his definition of the goal of the whole system of philosophy, the whole 4 journeys, we will find that any gap between the knower and the known is eliminated. There is no gap, no distance between the knower and the known. The other result, being becomes the mirror in which man is depicted. Being becomes the mirror in which man is depicted. Man is a mirror in which being is depicted. Both are mirrors depicting God. So we have 3 mirrors. 2 mirrors actually. One is the mirror which shows the being, the whole being. It is the mirror of man. Man is a mirror which shows the whole being. Each of them shows each other. Man, the world, the whole existence, and the whole existence shows man. Correspondence of the man and the outer world. In other words, it is the correspondence